All right, so I have what's probably a controversial topic to discuss today, and it's really because the more and more I talk to folks, I really see a trend kind of forming, and I just want to call it out. So hopefully it becomes something you think about and maybe have a discussion with your family. And it really goes to the fact that a high-paying job is a trap, and I'll discuss what I mean by high-paying and a trap and all of that here in a few slides. But real idea is just because you have a high paying job doesn't mean you're better off. It doesn't mean you're set up for financial success. In fact, in many cases, it means you better pay attention because you could be set up for trouble if something goes sideways. So that's what I'm here. So as always, we're going to go through the goals. I'm going to sort of set up what I think the problem is, and I really think it's more of a reality, and it could be a problem. But I think it's better to discuss it and share with you and get your thoughts on it. I don't think many people are going to like what I have to say on the follow-up slide to that, so we'll sort of just preface that, and it's just going to be the straight up truth, and maybe a few things controversial, but I'm just going to share what I think. I do think you have a choice because I think all of us sort of have free will, and if we think about it and acknowledge what's going on, it really brings to the forefront a choice, and I'll sort of share with you what that is. And then there's a suggestion to wrap this up. For the folks that have a high-paying job, I think there's some suggestions that you need to be aware of because that high-paying job won't always be around. So how could a high-paying job really be a problem? You know, you did the right thing, right? You went to college, you graduated, you got a good job, you got promoted, you earned some stock, got some commission, bonuses, RSUs, raises, whatever it is, right? You're living the American dream, and you're probably making 2, 3, 5, 10, 20x what you made your first job out of college. And, that's a good thing. Or at least it could be a good thing. Unfortunately, all of us, continue with that American dream, and it just means we bought a nicer car, or maybe a second car, or a third car. It means we bought a nicer house, or nicer furniture, or nicer TV, or second house, or vacation home, or whatever, right? More expensive vacations, where you used to spend a couple of $1,000s on a week's vacation, now you're spending 20 grand, right? So you're getting some great experiences. Your pictures look great, your Instagram looks great, Facebook looks awesome. But at the end of the day, the bank account's not much different. You're living really close to the edge. I think there's a fact here that in reality it should scare us. If you make 50K after taxes and spend 48, you're much better off than the person who makes 200K after taxes and spends 198. Why? How can I say that, right? They're both netting, they both have $2,000 left over. Well, a couple of things, right? The person who's netting 200K is probably has these extra sources of incomes, the bonuses, the commissions, the stock, RSUs, options, whatever it is. And those things can go away. You could have a bad year. The stock market could crash. The company could get bought. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. Fortunately, your income can fall a lot faster than your expenses. Right? That's the reality that I'm really trying to highlight here. When you raise your expenses, you get used to a style of living, and you live really close to that max income, bad stuff can happen. In addition to that, think about it. The person who has $2,000 left over after 50K, right? That's about 5%, right? It's actually 4%, right? They have 4% savings. Where the person who has 2K left over after 200,000, that's 1%, right? So there's all kinds of reasons that, just because you both have 2 grand left at the end of the day, the person who had the higher income and the higher expenses is in a lot more trouble. And it's really a shame. Is the lifestyle and worth an extra 150K? I think you could do lots of things with that if we just acknowledged what's going on and really thought about the future and just thought a little bit differently. Then I hear from people, well, what are you talking about? I make so much money. I have a reserve fund. I have a savings account. I have a stock portfolio. I hear all the time, right? I have 6 figures put away somewhere, right? I have multiple 6 figures put away somewhere. Well, first of all, if it's in a savings account, you're earning less than inflation, so that's being eaten away. If you're in the stock market, right, congratulations, you're at another top of the market. And if you remember what happened last time we were at the top of the market, right, it's again, I don't know when, I don't know why, but it will. And we'll talk when that happens, right? The stock market can crash at record speeds and just hurt us all. So I want to bring this back to a savings account with six figures, a stock portfolio with multiple six figures. That's not really long-term financial security, right? I don't, unless you're, I was going to say Warren Buffett, but he doesn't really have stock money. He owns companies, right, for the most part. Um, you need to buy assets, and these assets should produce a monthly income now and ideally a lot more in the future, right? This is the things we need to think about. And again, this is the slide that I think is going to piss some people off, and I'm okay with that. I just hope it wakes some people up. I think I think a lot of us have gotten comfortable, right out of college, getting on the job path and just working hard and quite frankly, enjoying our successes, right? As you're on this hamster wheel and you're running faster and faster and faster and you're getting more and more food or whatever it is, you're enjoying yourself. And you think running on the hamster wheel is going to last forever. So you make a little bit of money, you see some successes and you go buy a nicer this or that. Right? I see too many people raising their spending to match their income. And I think at a certain point, I don't know where it is, maybe it's 5 years out of college, right? Those first 5 years are tough, right? You're not making a lot, you're paying loans for many of us. But at some point, maybe it's year 5, maybe it's year 8, somewhere there, you cross some magic threshold where you know what, your standard of living has been raised to enough where you can really start chunking away significant dollars without doing the extras. Don't buy the 7 Series BMW. Don't buy, the second Mercedes. Don't buy that, fancy Rolex watch or whatever it is. It's these extras that if we just step back and realize, you know what, we live in a nice area. We've got a couple of cars. Our kids are in nice schools. Let's start saving some significant money because when we save a significant amount of money, once it gets to a point, we can deploy that on assets that produce cash flow. I think the other thing is I wonder if you thought back to the last year, if you really needed half the stuff that you bought. I don't think you needed it. I think you may have wanted it, right? I think that's the thing that we need to step back and talk to, the family about is what's a want versus a need, right? Once you're out of college, again, that 5 to 8 year time frame, all of your needs are likely covered. After that is just more wants. And unfortunately, the wants just increase in price tags as our income comes up. We need to start controlling our wants, people, or else you're going to be stuck on that hamster wheel, stuck in the rat race for a long time, and it could have a very bad ending. The other thing I think a lot of us are doing is we're keeping up with the Joneses. We're keeping up with our friends. We're watching all these Instagram and Facebook and all these other things, and we're spending a lot of money to have a good time in a story where, you know what, if you took that and you just tucked it away and you built it into a nice little pile, and then you took that pile and deployed it as a down payment on something and got a 15 or 30-year mortgage, you'd be so much better off both in the short term and the long term. Here's the other one. Just because you have six figures saved, I truly believe you can't save your way to a better future. Right? I heard somewhere where, the interest rate now, 1% or whatever it is, it take you a couple hundred years to double your money. Yeah, I don't know about you, but most of us are likely live 30 to 35, 40 years post-retirement. You just can't save your way there, right? Maybe if you're the top 1% of 1% and you live on, a third of your income, you could. But most of us, the people that are watching me or listening to me, you can't save your way to a better future, right? You know, you could get, several hundred grand and be better off than most, but you can't get there. And also cash is depreciating. Right. If we haven't seen anything now, inflation is raging and it's only going to get worse in my opinion, which is going to make, cash, the savings account, worth even less. If you're not buying assets that produce cash flow, that are indexed for inflation, meaning inflation protected, provide some tax advantages when you have this high income, I think you're really missing the boat. All right, you need to again cut back on the expenses once you get to that that break even point or wherever that is, that 5 day mark out of school, and you need to start protecting. You need to be thinking about the future and what's really going on. I think most of us have about a 15-year window where our income is near or at the high level, right? We have that we sort of raise into our mid to late 30s, through our 40s, and if we're lucky into our mid 50s. And you know it doesn't last a long time, right? It goes by quick. And if you want to think about it and look at things in reality, right? We all should know about the stories of the professional athlete. First and foremost, professional athletes, their careers are relatively short. They're 3 to 5 years, depending on the sport. They make, I don't know, let's just call it lots of money, and too often they end up in bad situations for lots of reasons. Most of those reasons are their lifestyle increases to match their income, and then when their income falls, they can't cut their lifestyle fast enough. I think a lot of Americans have the same problem. It's not as prevalent, right? It's not as in the open, because you have a longer time frame, where we don't talk about the average, person. We want to be on the TMZ and all these other professional athletes and wallow in their misery, and maybe some of us laugh at them. I got to tell you, too many of the people that watch this are at risk of the same thing. It's just in a different time horizon. It's not as spectacular as watching a 28-year-old who made $100 million in his career end up in bankruptcy. It could happen to all of us, right? We're going to work through our 60s, for the most part, but it could happen. And I think we need to do things during our high income years to protect us. And that means buying assets that protect us or provide cash flow now and in the. So I think you have a choice, right? The first one is you can just keep doing what you're doing, or maybe it's not you, but a lot of people I see are doing this as their income increases and they get these little windfalls of commission or stock or whatever. They just spend it, right? And most of them are going to yell at me and say, I don't spend it all. I only spend half or whatever. But, you know, why? Um, one of the things that, I wanted to put here is that, when we were building our portfolio, we actually lived on what is called in my profession the base, right? I was a salesperson for most of my career, or a sales leader, and my commission base for most of the time frame was, we'll just call it 50-50, which means, let's just say I made 200. It meant that my base was 100, and what's called my at-risk pay, if I did a good job and I sold as much as I was supposed to, I would make the other 100. Well, my family lived on my base, which is right, which most people don't do, right? They rely on that full on target earnings to pay the bills, and they live on credit cards and loans and all of that until the big commission. Not us. We lived on the base, and then when the commissions check showed up, we tucked them away, and when the cash was big enough, we bought assets. And 15 years of that, got us to a point where life doesn't suck. It's a pretty good deal. And then the other choice is, if you can stop, reassess what's going on, and decide to take control of your future, right? You're the only person, you and your significant other are the only person that could stop and really reassess and take control. You could do this tried and true things. You could set a budget. You can quote unquote live below your means. You could sacrifice. I don't care what you want to call it. Just live on less than what, live on, enjoy and less than today, right? These income years aren't going to go on forever. So think about it, and control that and decide to invest this excess cash in something else, right? When you accumulate those dollars, please buy assets that produce cash flow, right? And maybe it's not huge cash flow today, but I promise you it'll be a lot more in the future. In the end, I'm concerned about the future of many people I talk to, right? Because I see them, right? They have the high incomes. They have the W-2s that would be very impressive in lots of cases, but they're not doing the things to protect themselves in 15, 20, 30 years. So this is what I recommend. This I can already hear some of you cringe when this comes out. Right? If you have what I call a high paying job, let's just call it north of 100 grand, Maybe it's 200 grand if you happen to live in the expensive parts of California. What would happen if you tried to live on 60% of your after-tax dollars? Could you do it? Right? Think about that, right? What would you have to sacrifice or cut back on to live on 60%? Maybe it's 80%. Whatever it is, try to cut back to something, below spending at or near all of your take-home pay. The other thing is as you are saving those dollars or you have cash in the bank beyond just the flat, emergency fund, I suggest that you look to buy for rental property. Um, I suggest very conservative financing, right? I'm again very different than most people. Most people talk about maximum leverage and all these things. Well, I lived through a real estate cycle and, maximum leverage hurt people bad. And that's not what I want to do. I don't want to add stress to your system, right? Maybe you even put 50% down. I don't care. But the idea is you're going to be very conservative. You're going to buy things that are guaranteed to cash flow, and you're going to hold them and let the tenants pay off the rest of the mortgage. Just think about it. If you had these four things and you had a 15-year mortgage or you did a 30-year but paid it off in 15, I don't care where you live, you're likely going to have north of $1 million extra dollars in assets, right? Not only, what their current value is, but after 15 years of appreciation, they're going to double, right? Also, you're going to probably have north of $5,000 a month in 15 years, right? That's significant dollars coming in. So, right, I just think there's some things we need to do, right? I'm concerned about people in the rat race. I'm concerned about sort of, living, really too close to what you're taking home, and I think there's some things we all could do differently. So in the end, I do think having high-paying jobs is a trap for some people, right? Again, back to the professional athletes, I think we see all the stories where it's a huge trap. They're out of the league for 9 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and they're broke. I think that's sad. I think that could be extrapolated to the average American, and I think we just need to recognize that and what we could do, and frankly, what they could do if they bought assets that, right? If just think about the professional athlete, right? If they went out and bought, right, with their income, maybe they buy 5 apartment buildings. Shoot, and when they, done with all of that, they're 4 years later, they have 5 apartment buildings, paying them, I don't know, I'm making this up now, maybe it's 30 grand a month. Certainly better than being broke. So again, if you're buying assets when you're high income years and you're sort of putting this away, they're indexed for inflation, you're getting tax advantages, you get cash flow now and a lot more later, you're going to be a lot better off. So if you like this topic, you have some friends that are high income, do me a favor and share this video with them, hit the like button, leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. I think we're at 150 subscribers. A long way to go to my goal of 1,000 by the end of the year. And as always, there's my email at the bottom if you'd like to reach out. Have a great day.